Hi, I'm Eason, and welcome back to Metal Monday, where I talk about albums new and old that I recommend you listen to so you can start your week off right. Dose of truth. Listening to Grindcore is a lot like getting very mildly snippy with Bass Rutten in a bar. You'll be on the floor picking up your teeth before you have the time to process what just happened to you.
He stands here, we're standing like, and we start. Another one.
Yeah. Remember when I said I haven't listened to nearly enough Grindcore in 2020? Well, just a little while after that, I discovered these guys, and my first question was, where the fuck were you guys when I was looking? And it turns out they have been around since 2006. They have released 4 4-lengths, and I was the ignorant one who just didn't know they existed. A mistake I'm about to correct. And these days when rage, aggression, pent-up pressure, and a lot of frustration is bubbling to the surface, I think Grindcore is just what the doctor ordered. So, apropos of that, this is Feastem's Graveyard Earth. This Finnish outfit play a volatile mixture of Deathgrind, which means on top of the usual hardcore punk-tinted grindcore stylings, you're going to be hearing a lot of death metal hybrid riffs thrown in. This means death metal sauce will be poured over and will seep into every single little nook and cranny of this 15-song, 19-minute grind extravaganza. What this entails in a nutshell is highly aggressive guitar work that always seems to want to test what is humanly possible in terms of both speed and vicious aggression. This is married to furious drumming that is suitably pissed off, throwing a lot of really fast D beats and blast beats your way, and the vocals, that which ties the bow, split the difference between screaming and death growls, always delivering to you socially conscious and somewhat politically charged lyrics. In short, good music. Therein lies the tricky part. There's the deception, because while seeming simple, Grindcore is actually one of those genres which is notoriously and exceedingly difficult to nail down, or at the very least execute properly, which is where Feastem excel, and to their credit, they make it seem effortless. And while sitting down and preparing the draft for this particular video, I come to realize that there's a bit of a checklist going on at the back of my mind, in my subconscious, if you will, whenever I'm listening to a Grindcore record and trying to see if I really like it or not. And in order to make things easier, I'm going to go over that checklist and elaborate on how Feastem managed to check all boxes. So let's go. Number 1. Expediency. There's no denying that one of the central tenets of grindcore is expediency. The music provided by good grind bands is highly urgent, and this sense of urgency goes beyond just executing songs at speeds that always seem to be verging on just becoming noise. And in that regard, Feastem managed to find that sweet spot between high speed and a sense of urgency. Every single moment on this particular record drives it forward. Every single moment has a purpose, and everything contributes to the progress of the album. They don't fuck around, they don't waste time inserting voice clips from movies or political speeches and whatnot, and they don't stop to give a 4 stick count at the beginning of every song. Looking at you, lurid panacea. Number 2, riffs. Yeah, I know. No duh, right? You have to have good riffs in order to have good grindcore, but the trap that some bands seem to fall into is that you don't get to just throw in a couple of punk riffs and then call it a day. Due to the stylistic tenets of grindcore, you don't really have all that much time to dwell on the riffs that you are writing. Every single riff that you throw in the listener's face has to count, has to hit hard, has to hit home. This is something that Feastem fucking excel at. Without falling into the trap of just mindlessly grinding on top of a blast beat, pushing everything towards meaningless noise, Feastem managed to churn out all these tasteful, highly memorable, really well executed, and hard-hitting riffs one after the other. Now seriously, Graveyard Earth is wall-to-wall riffs on riffs on riffs. What's more, Feastem managed to find a room to actually insert more than just one type of riff per song. More often than not, songs tend to transition between different types of riffs while still having central ideas to to ground them so the band can work off of them. Sometimes the riffs shift in a more death metal direction, as in the songs Sick and Terror Balance, and sometimes they lean more towards the punk side of things, as in I Will Never Kill. But the crowning jewel of this particular record have to be the two tracks that milk the moodier, more atmospheric, if you can believe that, aspects of Deathgrind and manage to provide you some palpable darkness, which are Creeping Heat and Spreading the Darkness. While these two tracks don't really provide anything innovative in terms of Deathgrind, they provide what they do with exceeding excellence, so kudos guys. And on a related note, number 3. Variety. A good grind record is not one note. It doesn't just spam the same song over and over and over again over however many tracks that the band is going to spend minimal time exploring as it stands. In that regard, Feastem managed to provide ample amount of variety in the 19 minutes. I mean, Graveyard Earth is simply bursting at the seams with content. Similar to how the riffs thrown your way tend to shift between styles, there are also other genres of metal incorporated into the shell, the sarcophagus of this particular Graveyard planet. For example, the track Sorta Volta includes sludge metal into the mix, providing a really nice, really groovy, rollicking little riff. In Isolation We Die mixes in bits and pieces of groove metal, something that comes to full fruition on the track Graveyard Earth, which begins with this really nice, really lower mid-tempo bass riff, and when it slowly evolves into the more obviously groove metal parts, you find yourself just bobbing your head and bobbing along with the music. And these little moments of respite are well appreciated because they make the grindcore assault that follows them hit all that much harder. Mixing in different genres while still keeping to a sound that is firmly grounded in grind, and try saying that 3 times fast, is nothing short of an achievement, and it manages to give Feastem the edge that I require in the grindcore that I listen to. Number 4. A good drummer. For fuck's sake. Look, I can't emphasize this enough, alright? If all your drummer can do is churn out these basic bitch D beats and blast beats, throw his ass out. He's not fucking worth it. One of the greatest weapons that a grind band can possibly have is a drummer that can both keep up with the speed and aggression requirements of the music while still providing improvisations in terms of fills, syncopation, cymbal attacks, and so on. Luckily for Feastem, they have Mr. Patrick Kelt, whose name I'm hoping I did not butcher, at their disposal, and his performance is one of the things that makes Graveyard Earth absolutely soar. The simple embellishments that he provides in the opening track, The Rope Calls Your Name, the punctuating hits on I Will Never Kill that knock your fucking teeth out, the rip-roar wonderful kick syncopation he provides under the steady D beat of Terror Balance, all are moments that makes this man and the music shine that much brighter. I mean, there's even a moment on the track Mouths of Others where the band basically decide to stop and give him the room to execute a very nice, if woefully brief, drum fill. That is how good the guy is. Which brings us to number 5. Seamless album flow. A good grind record flows well. A great grind record feels like a single long song that is comprised of all these itty-bitty and highly aggressive little parts. Feastem's Graveyard Earth flows naturally like an uninterrupted river from the opening moments of The Rope Will Call Your Name to the final noise of outro. Instead of making an album feel like songs that have been thrown together and separating them by opening them with a stick count, still fucking looking at you, lurid panacea, Feastem allow the aggression to flow and the tracks to naturally follow one another. Even the slower parts that appear in some of the tracks that I have mentioned feel like things that the band throws in order to keep things interesting, and those parts too contribute to this forward momentum that is at the heart of Graveyard Earth. Combined with the extremely short album length, this makes Graveyard Earth a very brief but a very engaging and immersive experience. The flow of the record is so natural, in fact, that there are moments on this record where songs from little couplets feeling almost like they're the first and second halves of a single movement rather than 2 separate tracks. The songs I Will Never Kill and Sick form a couplet, the track Sorta Volta and however the fuck that is read form another one. And to my surprise, surprise, later in the record the tracks Creeping Heat, In Isolation We Die, and Pelon Voima form a triplet, something that I didn't think was possible. All these little additions to the basic grind formula is what both separates Feastem from the rest of their peers and manages to keep things interesting and consistently high quality throughout. And tying the bow on this comes the final item of the checklist: suitable production. In my opinion, there are two main ways in which a grind band can actually manage to fuck up their production. The first is by not producing enough. By keeping things intentionally extremely raw, you manage to deprive the sound of the impact that it might have, just so you can accentuate the noise elements contained within. And the second, on the opposite end of the spectrum, brickwalling the living shit out of your sound. To their credit, on Graveyard Earth, Feastem managed to find that place where they can both have a raw, aggressive sound while still being able to polish it and making sure that it loses none of its bite while still retaining a level of quality in production. The guitars come through nice, loud, crisp, raw, with lots of vicious bite. The drums don't feel like they're typewriter keys wired directly into your eardrums, and they come through loud and clear. The snare tone is acceptable. The vocals sit nicely in the mix, and it isn't overly brickwalled. In short, it is great. I can almost hear you asking, so does this album not have any flaws? Well, it's not really innovative. It doesn't reinvent the wheel on Deathgrind or anything, but I don't know if you would consider that a flaw. Personally, I think having a lot of conviction in your chosen genre and trying to do the best that you can has a lot more merit than coming up with something wholly experimental that has no direction, no drive, just exists as this sort of weird avant-garde piece, you know? Well, alright, I don't get why the outro had to be this little interlude of meaningless noise. Like, it leaves the album on a cliffhanger, basically. It doesn't put paid to anything. There is no closure. The album just seems to stop. And it prevents the album from actually reaching completion, which I find to be really fucking frustrating. It's kind of like watching this really good TV show and being invested in it, and at the end of it, it wraps everything up, but then just needlessly ends this little post-credits scene, creating a way for them to just insert a new season. Like, you could have stuck the landing a little bit better, guys. Just saying. All that said, who do I recommend this to? Well, if you're a Grindcore fan, you should be all over this record already. If you're a hardcore punk fan or a hardcore fan who is looking for something a little different, a little faster, a little bit more aggressive, a little harder, if you will, you should definitely check Graveyard Earth out. If you are just sort of flirting with Grindcore, if you're just dipping your toes into the pool, I think Graveyard Earth should definitely feature on your Gateway albums list. You are not very likely to hear it because people will be mentioning a lot of other albums and not this one, but I'm saying you should definitely add it to your list. As per my custom, there's a Bandcamp link in the description down below. Why don't you go click that, spare 20 minutes to listen to it, and then 2 more to come back and leave me a comment below. Tell me what you thought about it. If you've actually listened to this album, what did you think about it? Did you love it? Did you love it? If you like my content, please like, comment, and subscribe, as it always helps. And as always, it's Eason. Peace out, motherfuckers. Oh, and by the way, I don't think Lurid Panacea is a bad band. I just find their habit of starting every single fucking track that lasts about 40 seconds with a stick count fucking annoying. And vocals that seem to split the difference between screaming and growling, delivering to you, for the most part, socially conscious Jesus. Haha!